effort again.
We're busting ours to kick yours.
That's big time.
-15.
Respect all, fear none.
Oh, did he belt that one?
Intensity is not a perfume.
It was a no-doubter.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We are up in the bird's nest here at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. I'm Brendan Mortensen alongside Annie Klaff. We are joined by a live studio audience as some of our great MASN crew is here getting ready for baseball tomorrow because we have baseball tomorrow.
I know, it feels weird to say.
We are just 24 hours away from Major League Baseball's opening day. The Orioles, of course, open up the season north of the border up in Toronto. And if you are joining us live here on YouTube and Facebook, you can see that we have another whiteboard.
Yeah.
It's an exciting episode when we have a whiteboard.
When we have a whiteboard.
That's why you got to tune in live to get the visual of this stunning whiteboard here. We've got a lot to get to today, Annie, but of course we need to start with, well, kind of a sad fact, which is that we are no longer on the same rec soccer team.
No, we are not.
The Pathetico Madrid updates will just be coming from you.
Yeah, that's true.
As I've abandoned the squad, it's baseball season.
Yeah.
I can't play
That's
rec
true.
sports all the time, but, you know, it happens.
Yeah, Brendan has left me in the dust on our rec soccer team, and it's probably the reason that we only tied our opening game.
That's what people are saying.
No win, so maybe, again, it'll come down to Brendan as the common denominator for our tough start to the season.
Maybe I'll have to drop in at some point.
Yeah, a sub every now and then.
Right. The super sub. Just the
Right.
energy guy. The glue guy.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm any of those things, but maybe the energy guy.
yeah,
I think I at least brought that.
I think so.
Sure. We'll go with that. We have a new energy guy here in studio as well, which is our lovely Orioles plushie, which is one of the great giveaways that you can get coming to Camden Yards. We are still trying to figure out a name. My initial thought was Frederick. He kind of looks like a Frederick. If you have any better name suggestions, please let us know in the comments on YouTube and Facebook as we are live here every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Frederick is my gut instinct. If you have a name better than Frederick, let us know.
I haven't been able to come up with any, except for Franklin, but then we realized that was the name of the stuffed animal that you gave Melanie last year.
Yes.
We think.
Yes, that was a good luck charm on the broadcast for a while.
was.
The Orioles were winning a few games with Franklin the Bear in the studio. But, yeah, I think Frederick, we need to get to know his personality a little bit more before we figure out a name. But for right now, we'll go with Frederick.
Maybe Bob.
Bob?
Yeah.
I don't know if he's a Bob.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
Well, maybe. We'll see.
Maybe.
We'll see. He is standing in front of our whiteboard here, and if you can see our whiteboard, it's a little bit hard to see, but we are going to be handing out superlatives for the Orioles for this season, making some predictions as to who is going to be the most valuable Oriole, the best starting pitcher, how many All-Stars they'll have, an unsung hero, the most valuable prospect. We've got a lot of categories to get to, so we will jump right into it.
Let's do it.
Let's start with a fun one. Let's start with most home runs.
Okay.
Annie, we'll start with you. Which Oriole do you think is going to have the most home runs in 2025?
All right. I think I'm going to go with a less obvious one.
Okay.
Because for the sake of discussion, that's kind of how this whole episode is going to roll a little bit,
Sure.
I think. But for the sake of discussion, I think Adley could come and make a comeback from a bit of a down season last year. Definitely come back in this specific stat category with he was fourth last season with home runs, 19 total, and 16 of them were in the first half of the season. So clearly, definitely a rough second half of the season. But if you take that stat and that category for Adley at what seems like he's going to have a really peak performance based off of his spring and the way he's come back in a changed mindset, more of a leadership role coming this season, if he can be consistent throughout the whole season with starting off with 16 home runs in the first half and then continuing that on in the second half, I think that he could be the guy with the most home runs.
Yeah, we saw him hit 20 home runs in 2023. This is a guy who can hit 20-plus home runs, get close to 30, I think. So if you are on the Adley Rutschman hype train, then picking him for a lot of these categories is not a bad choice at all. So you're going with Adley for most home runs. I was also trying to go with a different one. I mean, Gunnar Henderson had 37 home runs last year.
Yeah, he'd be an obvious one.
He's an obvious choice. I don't know if Gunner's going to quite get back to 37. He had 28 in 2023, and he was still really good. I'm going to assume that Gunnar is still going to hit right around 30. I'm going to go with Tyler O'Neill for this category.
That one's fun.
I mean, in the seasons that Tyler O'Neill is healthy, he's a 30-plus home run guy pretty consistently. We saw him hit over 30 last year. It was, I think 2 or 3 seasons ago where he hit 34. Yeah, 2021, he hit 34 home runs in St. Louis. The left field wall is back in. We got to see it yesterday.
Right.
It's still a relatively deep left field wall, but Tyler O'Neill, I know most of the home runs are going to go to his pull side. He is going to hit a lot of homers to left field, but if you look at his spray chart from last season, I mean, they are deep home runs to left field because when he gets a hold of one, that dude absolutely gets a hold of one. So I'm going to go with O'Neill. I know he wouldn't have had as many home runs at Oriole Park at Camden Yards last year as he had at Fenway, which is a much easier to home run park for a right-handed hitter, but I'm going to go with O'Neill. I think if he's healthy, he hits 30 dongs.
Yeah, that's definitely the key is if he stays healthy, then this guy is an absolute slugger, especially when you're going to the pull side. I mean, in spring training just this season, 82% of the time he pulled it. Last year with Boston, he pulled it 52% of the time. And he even said that when he joined the Orioles and when that deal was finalized, that definitely bringing in the left field wall was a huge contributing factor to him coming to Baltimore. So I think that this is not a surprising option for most home runs in 2025. You definitely just have to look out for health statuses because that one season in 2021 when he did have 34 home runs, that was his most highest appearances out of any season of his career. So definitely hoping for a healthy season for him.
Yeah, G-Man on YouTube commenting that Ryan Mountcastle is a sleeper pick
next
as
one.
well. I think Mountie could be right up there. I think he could hit 30-plus home runs this season as well. So that would be a good pick, too. Let's keep moving down the board here, Annie. Next is best starting pitcher. I think this is another one with a few obvious choices. So which way did you go?
Yeah, I think this one I went with the guy who's taken the mound on opening day, Zach Eflin. I think that he does have a little bit of potential to become a true ace. Certainly looked like it last season after the trade deadline. I mean, a 2.60 ERA with the O's, a whip close to 1,100. The command is certainly there. I mean, his walk rate is elite. I think that this guy will most likely be the best starting pitcher. I think it would have been a different conversation if Grayson Rodriguez were making the opening day roster and staying healthy, but we're really not so sure about where that's going to go and how that will end up. So I'm going with Zach Eflin as best starting pitcher.
Yeah, I am as well. I think it's the safe choice and the right choice. This was a 6th-place Cy Young finisher in the American League just 2 seasons ago. And you're right. If Grayson Rodriguez were healthy, I think this would be a 2-man race between those two guys because we have seen what Zach Eflin can do. 2.60 ERA and 9 starts in Baltimore last year. But Grayson Rodriguez has ace upside. And this could have been the year that Grayson takes the leap. I'm not saying it's not the year that Grayson Rodriguez takes the leap. Hopefully he is back sooner rather than later from injury, and we still see a great season from him. But Zach Eflin, I think, is the easy and probably correct choice here. We'll stick on the pitcher front and go with best reliever here. I think there is one answer that everybody would like to say, but is it the answer that you went with, Annie?
So the one that everyone would like to hear us say is Felix Bautista, but I think that that's a little bit too risky to make that prediction just given he hasn't played in a regular season game since August of 2023. Coming back from Tommy John surgery, it's definitely still, they said that it was going to be a ramp-up process in the spring. It most likely will still be a ramp-up process even in the regular season.
Yeah.
So I don't think we see full Felix Bautista form that it was in his All-Star season in 2023 for quite some time. But with that, I went with Yennier Cano, who I think does have a lot of potential to get back to his 2023 All-Star form, where he recorded a 2.11 ERA. I think that especially now that he's back with his duo with Felix Bautista, could also see some upticks in performance. But even last season, he still had a really good season from Cano. So I went with Cano as best relieving pitcher.
Yeah, I did as well. For
All right, there
the
we go.
same thinking that, yes, Felix Bautista at his peak has the chance to be one of the most dominant relievers in baseball, and hopefully he is just completely back to that, and it is the Felix that we know and love. But there does have to be a little bit of a grace period for Felix Bautista, and, you know, he could come out of the gate a little bit rusty. He hasn't pitched in a big league game in a really long time. He has looked good in spring training, but we haven't really seen the wow fastball yet. He's getting it up to 97, 98. We've still yet to see the 100, 101, which we know Felix Bautista can get up to. So my heart really wants to say Felix. I don't think I'm there yet logically. And Yennier Cano has just put in back-to-back seasons of being a really good setup man. I would anticipate even if he doesn't get back to all-star form, it's probably going to be an ERA in the low threes. Yeah. Again, I will say, too, if Andrew Kittredge was healthy, I probably would have selected Andrew Kittredge for this category. All right, let's jump around a little bit. We are done with most homers, best starting pitcher, best reliever. Let's bump down to most valuable prospect.
Okay, this one's fun.
Yeah.
For this one, I said I didn't go with the obvious here, which either could have been Kobe Mayo or Samuel Basallo, because you kind of hope that, at least for Kobe Mayo's sake, that he doesn't remain a prospect for all that much longer.
Yeah.
And then you could say the same for Samuel Basallo. I think it's going to take a little bit longer for Basallo rather than Kobe Mayo, both of which kind of have to wait for those holes in the big league lineup to make their debut, or not debut for Kobe Mayo, but debut for Basallo. So I went with Enrique Bradfield Jr. just because already a huge fan of the guy. I mean, the speed is off the charts. His defense is really great. And I think that this is going to be the season, too, where he starts to prove himself a little bit more at the plate. I think that those are the biggest question marks revolving around Enrique Bradfield Jr. so far, but I think that he is going to be the most valuable prospect in the organization.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there, because if you are looking at just a full season of a prospect, Enrique Bradfield Jr., I think, could have the best season there, considering the fact that he will probably be a prospect for the entire season. And I did have similar thinking there, where I was like, okay, outside of Kobe Mayo and Samuel Basallo, who am I really looking at there? However, we can't really go outside of Kobe Mayo and Samuel Basallo. I know they're really good, and we talk about them all the time. I don't want to discount how ridiculously good they are. And I think it is a toss-up between Mayo and Basallo in terms of who the most valuable prospect is. And I don't want to discount those guys just because we talk about them nonstop and how good they are. They have earned that. So Kobe Mayo, I would anticipate getting to the big leagues quicker than Samuel Basallo. And so I'm going to go with Basallo for this category. We haven't seen him play a ton of games in AAA Norfolk yet, but everything that we have seen in spring training, everything that we have heard about his progression, it's nothing but good things. And there's absolutely a scenario where Samuel Basallo is lights out for 2 months in the minor leagues, and then all of a sudden you're going, okay, we need to find a spot for this guy somewhere. And he could work out of prospect status by the end of the season. But I also think it's possible that Samuel Basallo, being about 3 or 4 years younger on average than everybody else at AAA Norfolk, does have his share of struggles a little bit at AAA, at least to start the season. And he could be there into August, September. An MLB debut is likely for Basallo this season. It's not guaranteed. So I think it's going to be Basallo as the most valuable prospect because, again, as I was doing this prep, I said a similar thing of, well, outside of Basallo and Mayo.
Right.
It can't really be outside of Basallo and Mayo. They're still incredible. Even though we're trying to, for variety's sake, come up with some different answers, they're the two best prospects in the system for a reason.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, they are still prospects at the point of us making these kinds of predictions. So I fully am on board with you selecting Samuel Basallo. I think just exactly what you said before, what we've seen from him in the spring, what we saw from him at AA. Right now, it's all about proving himself some more against professional pitchers, and I think that that's exactly what he could do this season with the more reps that he gets.
Yeah. All right. Let's stick with the prospects, and let's go with breakout prospect.
Okay. This one, I was toying with a few, but I think when it comes to prospects that I think weren't able to tap into their full potential last year, I think that's what I kind of decided to focus on. So I'm going to go with Vance Honeycutt, and it might seem a little bit of an obvious one, but not really, because he really didn't perform all that great in his first professional stints, but there also were only 56 plate appearances, so you can't really base all that much on that. So I went with Vance Honeycutt. He's a 5th-ranked prospect for a reason. Definitely has some swing and miss to work on. His hit tool is not arguably, but it is his worst tool. But he does have some loud tools aside of that. I mean, a 70-grade field, 60-grade arm, 65 run, and 60 power. I think everything except for the hit tool is elite, and he really just needs to focus on that. But I think that after a full season of being against professional pitchers and in the professional environment, that he could really break out and show his full potential.
Yeah, I don't think this is a surprise as a breakout prospect, given the fact that Vance Honeycutt was a first-round pick out of North Carolina last year. But you're right. I mean, it was a very brief stint in the minor leagues, but you would have liked to see a little bit more from Vance Honeycutt, but that's what you were drafting. You were drafting somebody where the hit tool was really raw, the power was there, the speed was there, the defense was already there, but he just needed to make better contact. I'm not saying that Vance Honeycutt was a project coming out of school, but any prospect is going to have things that they need to work on and improve. That's the whole point of the minor leagues. So Vance Honeycutt, I think, is a great choice for this category specifically because we know the talent is there and he just needs to put it together.
Right.
And I'm sure having a full off season in the organization for the first time, his first off season as a professional baseball player, and this is his first true professional season. Cup of coffee last year is not enough to judge him on. So Vance Honeycutt could leapfrog somebody like Enrique Bradfield Jr. Or, I'm not saying he's going to leapfrog a Kobe Mayo or Samuel Basayo, but if Vance Honeycutt plays up to his potential and the hit tool continues to improve, this is an easy candidate to go, top 100 prospect, top 50 prospect, because every tool is there. The defense, the power. If he puts it together at the plate a little bit more, this could be the Orioles' next big thing. So I'm very on board with that pick for you there.
I was going to go with Pat Riley just for some variation, but I think that when he came in from the Pirates organization last year after the trade deadline, showed some really good flashes. I mean, 11 Ks per 9 innings. So I think that he could be in that conversation as well. But Vance Honeycutt was definitely had the leg up over Pat Riley for me. Yeah,
Patrick Riley, the Orioles' 10th ranked prospect according to MLB Pipeline. I went with another top 10 prospect, which feels like cheating a little bit. We're not going super deep here, but I'm going to go with Michael Ferret.
Okay, fun.
I think by the end of the season, Michael Ferret establishes himself as far and away the best Orioles pitching prospect. We have only seen him get up to high A Aberdeen, but he was really good there. I mean, a 4.35 ERA isn't otherworldly, but over 11 strikeouts per 9, and he's so projectable. If Michael Ferret hits his ceiling, he's going to be a dude. His pitch arsenal is unbelievable. He's got 2 good fastballs, a 4-seamer that reaches up to 97, a 2-seam fastball with good action on it. He throws a slider and a sweeper. He throws 2 different changeups, one of which is the kick changeup, which we have heard has done wonders for Cade Povich. The stuff is unbelievable. The splitter in that arsenal as well. So if he can put everything together, he can strike a ton of guys out. He is the classic Orioles pitching prospect where he walks a lot of guys and he needs to keep the ball in the strike zone.
Sure.
But it's a 6'3" guy with a fastball up to 97 with really good secondaries, a sweeper, the kick change. Those can all play. And if he can put everything together, it's a lot of projection with Ferret because the upside is so high and he's got to stop walking batters and the command needs to come together and he needs to get some things together with his delivery where it's more repeatable and there's not as much action. There are a lot of things that go into it, but if everything goes together well, Michael Ferret is going to be an absolute dude.
Yeah.
So that's my pick.
I like that one. That one's a fun one. Definitely, like you mentioned, could use some work on the command, despite keeping the ball in the strike zone a decent amount of time, but also just a fun story too, having gone to the State College of Florida in Manatee, Sarasota, right in the backyard of the Orioles whole farm system and spring training facility. Back there.
14th round pick.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
So that's quite the breakout there.
Yeah, definitely. I like that idea.
Yeah, my other pick for this category was the Orioles' 30th ranked prospect, Austin Overn.
Yeah.
Who we have talked about on this podcast before. Kind of an Enrique Bradfield Jr. light, where the hit tool is definitely not as polished as it was for Bradfield coming out of Vanderbilt, Austin Overn coming out of USC. But it's a similar profile where he's a left-handed hitter who doesn't have a ton of pop. He's kind of going to be a slap gap hitter. And the athleticism is so off the charts that he has a chance to just be a really high floor type of player. It's another defensive outfielder with probably 80 grade speed, another menace on the base paths.
Right.
And the thing that intrigues me about Austin Overn is that he's another multi-sport guy. And we know the Orioles like to draft those types of players. I mean, Gunnar Henderson was a state player of the year in basketball before, obviously playing baseball full time. I'm excited to see what Austin Overn can do just being a full-time baseball player because he hasn't done it for very long. He was a wide receiver his freshman year at USC, so he doesn't have a lot of years under his belt just focusing on baseball, and I'm excited to see what he can do. So Austin Overn gets an honorable mention here from me.
He was definitely on my notes as well. I mean, we spoke with him last year when he was at Aberdeen, and just a great guy. You talked with him about that kind of dual sport experience in college, but the speed, the fielding is no joke for this guy, and I think that there's a lot to come for him as well. And pretty ranked a little bit further down on the top 30 prospect list for the Orioles than we kind of expected, or at
I
least
thought he
myself.
would be higher.
Yeah, but definitely could see him being the top breakout prospect as well.
Yeah, because the bat just needs to come along more, and there's not a lot of raw power there, and it's not as good of a hit tool as Enrique Bradfield Jr. had, but if he can improve the hit tool a little bit, get on base at a higher clip, the power doesn't need to be there, just like it doesn't need to for Bradfield. So I could see Austin Overn being that guy. All right, before we get to the fun ones in best bobblehead and best facial hair, let's bounce back up, and let's go with breakout star.
All right.
That's a big one.
Got to find this on my notes now. Okay.
So this one you could take a few different ways.
Sure.
Like, are you going to pick a player that was already good and is now going to become a star, or best improved? You can interpret it a few different ways here.
So I am kind of still between two guys.
Okay.
But I think I know which one I'm leaning more towards, so I will start to talk a little bit about the one that I'm leaving out.
Okay.
I think the one that I'm going to leave out for now is Heston Kjerstad.
Okay.
I think that there is a lot of potential for him. Probably still won't be an everyday player unless it's a little bit of a situation like last season with Colton Cowser proving himself and Austin Hayes struggling a little bit at the beginning of the season, so that Cowser could become an everyday player. So we could see that with Heston Kjerstad. We don't know for sure just yet, but I still don't think that right now he could be an everyday player to be able to get enough repetitions to be the breakout star on the squad. So I'm a little bit hesitant to pick Kjerstad in this
things would also
spot.
have to go wrong for Heston Kjerstad to be an everyday player. I guess there is a case where Heston Kjerstad hits like 400 and then all of a sudden he's an everyday player, but there's not a natural place for him to just step into an everyday role. I know we did see it a little bit with Colton Cowser last season, but a lot of that was because of how much Austin Hayes struggled and then getting injured. If things go well, Tyler O'Neill stays healthy and is playing good baseball, Heston Kjerstad can be lighting the world on fire, and he's still probably not an everyday player. I mean, he'll get more reps at designated hitter, and he'll get more reps there. But every day feels like, okay, something happened here for Heston Kjerstad to be an everyday player, which we don't want to have to project.
True. Yeah, I definitely agree. So I was hesitant to pick Kjerstad, but the one that I am going to go with is Cade Povich. I think that there is a lot still left in the tank for Povich. We're starting to see it already based on his spring numbers, and really strong spring with a 3.07 ERA across 14 2/3 innings and WHIP under 900. So I think that there is a lot more to come from Cade Povich. September was really good last season. We ended 2.60 ERA and 32 strikeouts in 5 starts. So I think that there's a lot for him to prove, and I think that he could actually fully break out and tap into that full potential, especially getting confidence when you're making the opening day roster this season and getting that 5th rotation spot. So I think that there's going to be a lot that we're going to see from Povich.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I mean, we saw it at the end of last year where Povich had an ERA in the mid-2s in his final 5 starts. He has looked excellent in spring training. The changeup, I think, is going to be an X factor for him, where he now has something where, 75% of the time last year, he was throwing either a fastball or a slider or a curveball, something going away from left-handed hitters but going into right-handed hitters. And he had no offerings that were going away from righties in any way, shape, or form, which is obviously hard to do as a left-handed pitcher. But even just something that dropped right? And didn't have any left to right movement. So I think the changeup is going to be a game changer for him against right-handed hitters. So Povich, I think, is a good pick here, and I could very easily see Povich. I know it was a competition for the 5th spot in the rotation that Povich ultimately won. I think by season's end, Povich could work his way into a conversation where, it's not a question that he's in your starting rotation. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I also had 2 different guys for this category, and I guess it's a good sign that it was 2 different guys than the 2 that you had for this category. So I will also start with the one that I didn't ultimately pick, which is Jackson Holliday. I think he is going to have a huge year 2 leap. I don't know if Holliday is going to immediately ascend into star status, which is how I took this a little bit. Jackson Holliday, I think, is going to go from the struggles that we saw last year, being the number 1 overall prospect, having all of that pressure, to just being an everyday player who can play. And we have seen a lot of improvements from him in spring training. Seems like the mechanics at the plate are better, a little smoother. So Jackson Holliday, I think, turns into a really good everyday starter. I think, we could see a Jordan Westburg-esque leap from, when Westburg got 50, 60 games under his belt and then came back the next year, was an all-star a season ago. I don't know if Holliday will be an all-star, but I think he is going to have a really good second season in the bigs. The player that I ended up going with is a player that was already really good, but I think he takes a step to be a star in the game. That's Colton Cowser.
Okay.
He is a 5-tool player in every sense. He is an outfielder that can play Gold Glove defense. And I think from Cowser this year, we could pretty feasibly see an 800-plus OPS, 25 home runs, 25 stolen bases. I don't think that's out of the question at all from Colton Cowser. He has every single tool where he can be an elite player in this league. And so I know he was already good last year. I know he was already towards the top on this team in terms of baseball reference WAR. But we could feasibly see a 5-WAR season from Colton Cowser because he has every tool in the bag. And this is essentially year 2 for Colton Cowser. He was runner-up in Rookie of the Year voting last year. And, I know he played briefly in the 2023 season, but this is essentially year 2. And I think we'll see another leap from Colton Cowser. And I think he has every possibility of just being a really, really good player.
Yeah, I definitely like that answer. It's like you mentioned, there's 2 approaches you could take to this, and it is a different approach from what I ended up going with because you're right, Colton Cowser was already really good last year. And the bigger the leap, the better that this guy can take because if he can really make himself out to be a star if it were like that last year, this guy was already in contention and arguably should have been AL Rookie of the Year last season. So there could be a lot more to come from Colton Cowser, and if he does make another huge leap, then this guy's going to be a certainty for maybe an all-star in the upcoming season.
That's an excellent segue,
Excellent
Annie,
segue.
Because our next category is all-stars.
Now, are we going with a few or just one?
We're going to go with a few.
Okay.
So tell me how many all-stars you think there are going to be and who you think is going to get the all-star nod.
Well, I'm going to start with the 2 obvious ones.
Sure.
I think Gunnar is going to be an all-star again, and I think Adley is going to be an all-star again as well.
Yep.
3 straight all-star appearances for Adley could be coming up soon, right? Yeah. His 3rd one could be this season. I think one that's a little bit interesting for me is I'm toying with Jordan Westburg a little bit here because he did have his first all-star season last year. He really showed that the Orioles lineup without Westburg is a much worse off lineup than with Westburg in it because when he was injured, the offense was slumping. The defense had some issues as well in terms of who are you going to put where. And when Westburg is in, the chances for scoring with runners in scoring position is just so much better off with Westburg in it. So I think that one is interesting, but the one that I really wanted to put on this list, so I guess you could say 4 for me, which
Okay.
seems like a little bit of a stretch. But the one that I really wanted to put on this list is Colton Cowser, just because of what he showed last season and what he could be showing this upcoming season. I mean, even in the spring, a 1030 OPS and a 364 batting average. I know we're not really supposed to put too much stock into spring numbers, but the better the numbers the spring, the better off it seems to be for the upcoming season. So I think I really wanted to put Colton in there, and then for that reason, I guess I have 4.
Okay.
So it's very optimistic.
I've got a similar group. I have 3.
Okay.
I have Gunnar and Adley as well. I think those are essentially locks for the All-Star game. Gunnar Henderson is one of the best players in the league. Adley Rutschman has a solid case to be a top 2, 3, and maybe not number 2 or 3 catcher in the league. Adley could be the best catcher in baseball by season's end. Colton Cowser was my 3rd All-Star. As I said before, he is my breakout star for the season. I think we see an 800-plus OPS, excellent defense in left or right field or center field, wherever he ends up playing. And like I said, I think we see 25 homers, 25 stolen bases from Colton. I also really wanted to put Jordan Westburg. It's hard to make All-Star games in back-to-back seasons. I think Westy's going to have another great year. My only holdup there is that there are just a lot of good third basemen in the American League, and Westy's going to have to put up really good numbers to be in that conversation. I mean, you're talking about J-Ram in Cleveland is a lock to make the All-Star game every year. Paredes in Houston with the Crawford boxes might hit 30 home runs. Alex Bregman in Boston.
Some tough comp.
With the Green Monster might hit 40 home runs. All of those guys are going to be hard to beat for the All-Star game. I'm not saying Westy can't do it. This is just a bit more of a conservative guess for me with 3 All-Stars. I'm going to go Gunnar, Adley, Colton as my 3.
Yeah, I think that ultimately that makes the most sense, just given, like you mentioned, the competition that there is for making the All-Star squad, especially for Jordan Westburg. But I'm glad that we both can agree on Colton and what is to come from him in essentially his 2nd season and a full season of being an everyday player.
Yeah.
And the flashes that he showed, both really, really strong defense, really strong at the plate. I mean, he still was really, really good and one of the highest OPSs last season when you're competing up against Anthony Santander and Gunnar and everybody. So I think that Cowser, I'm really glad that we both have him in there.
Speaking of highest OPS.
I'm good at these transitions.
I know. You're nailing it today. Let's go with highest OPS.
Okay.
Bounce back up towards the top of the board here.
Do you want to go first?
I'd love to go
right.
first. This is an obvious. It's Gunnar Henderson. I mean, he had an OPS close to 900 last year. I know he's starting the season on the injured list, but an 893 OPS. He still had an 814 in 2023, and that wasn't even his best season. I think there are a few guys that are honorable mentions for me. Tyler O'Neill being one of them. I projected him to have the most home runs on the team. I think Adley Rutschman with another good season gets up to an 800-plus OPS, but Gunnar Henderson. I know it's an easy answer, but the OPS was close to 900.
Right.
I think it's Gunnar again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some others you can throw into the discussion, like you mentioned, Adley, of course, with the numbers that he's put on over the past, and what we could see from him moving forward, especially with how strong his spring is and the adjustments he made and the focus over the last offseason. I think you can also throw Mountcastle and Cowser in there. Cowser and Mountie were both 3rd and 4th highest OPS of last season after Santander. Cowser really could have a stellar season like we've talked about already.
Yeah.
Mountie with the left field wall. But I really think that the only true answer for this one is Gunnar Henderson, so I'm going to agree with you there.
Yeah, it's Gunnar Henderson. He's the best hitter on the team. There are other guys that do a lot of things well. Adley Rutschman, I think, is going to get back to having a fantastic on-base percentage. I think his OPS will be right around where we saw his first 2 seasons in the league at 800+. I think that could be even higher, 815, 830. Still a far way to go to get to Gunnar Henderson's 890 from last year. So Henderson, I know, is the obvious choice, but I think it's the obvious choice. I think it's the one you kind of have to go with. All right, unsung hero and most valuable Oriole are the 2 big ones for me. So let's first go
the fun ones.
to the fun ones.
All right.
We've got 2 fun ones here. Best bobblehead and best facial hair. We'll start with best bobblehead.
Okay.
We know some of the promotions that the Orioles are putting out this season. This is going to be a big one. There are a lot of good options.
There are a lot of good options.
There's an Adley Rutschman golf bobblehead, which is outstanding. A Colton Cowser Star Wars bobblehead. And a Gunnar Henderson Star Wars bobblehead. Those are both really, really good options. However, I'm going to go with the Adam Jones Hall of Fame bobblehead.
Yeah.
Where he's holding the pie. Of course, Adam Jones with the iconic pie face when he was in Baltimore. So I think this is a slam dunk choice for me. I think there are a lot of other good options, but Adam Jones entering the Orioles Hall of Fame, it's going to be a great day. It's going to be a really fun ceremony. It's a really fun guy. So, I mean, that's my dude.
Yeah,
I'm going to go with Adam Jones.
That is an easy answer. It is not going to be the answer that I give just because for differentiating factors, but that one is certainly going to be one that I'm excited for and excited to see what it actually ends up looking like. I think one that you didn't mention, which could be the best bobblehead, is the David Rubenstein one. That one could be fun.
David Rubenstein's going to be a good
we'll
bobblehead.
We'll have to see if he's in his most classic Orioles baseball hat that he always wears every single time, which I'm sure that will be on the bobblehead. But I'm going to go with the Cowser bobblehead. I think that one is going to be a really fun one.
It's a good pick.
Is that one's officially a Star Wars one?
It is.
Okay, that one's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
And I think it's just because of Cowser and his personality, it's bound to be a good bobblehead.
It's fun. I mean, Colton and Gunnar getting Star Wars bobbleheads, that's just
have to pair them together.
It's a recipe for a good time. So I think that's a good pick there. Colton Cowser with the Star Wars bobblehead. Hopefully we will have all of these bobbleheads here in our podcast studio to add to our mountain of bobbleheads, which are currently behind the whiteboard, and somehow your bobblehead
Brendan said I couldn't pick my own bobblehead as the best bobblehead of 2025.
I don't think it's going to be a giveaway is the thing.
It should be because she's perfect.
So moving on to the next category.
Crickets.
Let's go with best facial hair.
Okay.
Now, this is a tough one. Saw Ryan Mountcastle in DC the other day. He's starting to cook on the facial hair front a little bit. Colton and Cedric last year both rocked great beards. At times, I think they're up there as well. There's a lot of options here, Annie. Where'd you go with?
I went with Jordan Westberg.
Okay.
I think that he was definitely growing it out for sure in the offseason, and when we saw him at Birdland Caravan, that was a little bit of a shock on how fluffy his beard was. So I'm going to go with Jordan Westberg as the best facial hair. I even threw in Cionel Perez at one point because he keeps his very, very neatly trimmed. But I think I'm going to go with Westy.
I think that's a good pick there because it just fits Westy.
Yeah.
His personality, it just makes a lot of sense.
It really does.
I'm going to go with Gunnar here.
Okay.
Because
that one's good.
If Gunnar gets the stash back, that stash felt powerful last year. And I think the facial hair, I'm not saying it's the reason that Gunnar Henderson had such a good season, but the facial hair just had magical powers for him. And it was just the solo mustache. I think it works. I'm going to go with Gunnar Henderson for best facial hair.
Yeah, that one's fun, especially because it is just the mustache and it differentiates him from others. But he also fits the mold of having just a mustache. It just makes sense for him.
It works with the hair too.
The flow.
He's got the flow in the mustache. It just works.
The lettuce.
All right, we've got 2 categories remaining. Let's start with unsung hero.
Okay.
Because I think this is similar to most valuable Oriole in that this is somebody who brings a ton of value to the team. It's just not somebody that will get as much recognition as the most valuable Oriole will. So who is your unsung hero for the 2025 season, Annie?
This one I'm still kind of technically deciding, so I'm going to run through my options.
Okay.
And then decide at the very last second.
Sure.
So the first one I have is Ryan O'Hearn, and I think that this guy is a natural-born leader, both in the clubhouse and even on the field and just in everyday life. And this season, he probably and hopefully won't have to press as much as he did towards the end of the season where he's going on left situations. And he also has a sneaky OPS of close to 800.
Yeah, I keep seeing comments that are why is Ryan O'Hearn guaranteed a spot in the lineup? I don't know, because 800 OPS
Yeah,
as an Oriole.
in 2 seasons with the O's. And that is exactly...
What else does he need to do?
Right, and it's exactly what an unsung hero in my mind means, is someone that flies under the radar. And I think that the fact that people don't recognize that he has close to an 800 OPS in 2 seasons means that he will be that, especially tied with his leadership skills.
Yeah.
My next option is Ramon Arias, and he's just purely because he's one of those guys that pulled the slack for the O's offense a lot last season. 851 OPS from July 1st to the end of the season.
This is a Ramon reminder,
This
everyone.
is your Ramon reminder. Tried to trademark that last season, but it hasn't worked yet.
Patent pending.
Patent pending. So that's my number 2. And then my number 3 is Cedric Mullins. Because I think that, like Ryan O'Hearn, he is a natural-born leader, maybe not as loud and as vocal as O'Hearn. And the offensive numbers don't really jump off the page for Cedric Mullins, but he is certainly a veteran in this clubhouse. But when you do look at offensive numbers, I mean, a 333 batting average in the last 7 games of last season, arguably when it mattered the most. I mean, a home run in the postseason, the only run scored in the playoffs for the Orioles last season, and an 831 OPS in the second half when everyone was slumping. So Cedric, for me, is in that conversation as well for unsung hero. But I think that the one I'm going to go with is Cedric Mullins.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ced.
Yeah, I mean, Cedric Mullins just kind of very quietly chugging along. Just good season after good season. I know it's not the same offensive numbers as when he had a 30-30 season in 2021, but you look after that 4-WAR season in 2022, close to 3 in 2023, 2.5 last year. The OPS is consistently over 700. It's great defense in center field. He's a good leader in the clubhouse. Like you said, not the most vocal guy in the world, but more of a lead by example type of player. So Cedric Mullins, I know it's not the upside from that 30 home run season at the plate, but it's still a darn good player. He's going to give you 15 to 20 homers, great defense in center field, solid OPS. I think that's a good pick there. And again, like some of our other categories here where, I think it was the breakout star where we each had 2 guys and they were 2 different guys. I have 2 people in this category that I was going between, and they are 2 different players than you had for Unsung Hero. So first one, again, I'll start with the player that I didn't end up going with, and that's Gary Sanchez. For a few different reasons. A, veteran presence, has been around the block, has a ton of playoff experience. I think that's going to be valuable for this Orioles team. B, we have heard nothing but good things about his relationship with the pitching staff. We heard a lot about his relationship with Sugano at the beginning of spring training, where Gary Sanchez had worked with guys like Yu Darvish and Masahiro Tanaka, and so he had some familiarity with how guys like to pitch in Japan and how that communication style works with the language barrier. And so those are things that aren't going to show up on the stat sheet, but still mean a lot for a team. And the third reason is, I don't know if this will carry over into this season, but Adley Rutschman's numbers being a catcher versus being a designated hitter last year were pretty drastic at the plate. And so if you were able to get Adley Rutschman off of his feet a little bit where he's just a DH, could see those offensive numbers continue to climb. And so Gary Sanchez, I think, is going to be a really valuable piece of this team as the backup catcher. I think we'll see him in the lineup a lot against lefties. It's good platoon splits. And like I said, the relationship with the pitching staff is something that won't show up, but is still really, really important. The guy I'm going to go with in a similar ilk here, Charlie Morton.
I was right as you started explaining your first 2. I knew exactly that your second one was going to be Charlie Morton, and I'm really glad that you are bringing him up.
Yeah, because Charlie Morton, if he does what the Orioles signed him to do and what he has done for the last 4 or 5 seasons, is just post every 5th day. And again, I know he is not going to be the same pitcher as Corbin Burns was for the Orioles last year, but when you talk to Brandon Hyde about Corbin Burns, the first thing he said was that he just posted every 5th day. He was consistent. He was always in the rotation. He was always ready to go, always ready to make starts. And I think that's exactly what Charlie Morton is going to give you this season. Obviously not the same kind of numbers. I don't think Charlie Morton has an all-star season, but if he starts 30 games with an ERA, if it's in the high 3s, low 4s, that's still really valuable. And he is Charlie Morton, if you have gotten the chance to talk to him, he's a very cerebral guy. Like, you'll ask him about pitching and he'll give you a paragraph back. I don't think there are many guys around baseball more valuable to have in your clubhouse than Charlie Morton right now.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic answer.
World Series winner, brings
2 times.
postseason experience.
Yeah.
I think it's Morton, and I think we will see that impact, maybe not directly, but I'm sure when we talk to guys like Grayson Rodriguez and Cade Povich and Dean Kramer and Chase McDermott and whoever else you want to throw into that conversation, Kyle Bradish as well, some of the younger pitchers that haven't been around the game terribly long, Charlie Morton is going to be a huge presence for them. So that's my pick.
And Morton will not be the flashiest signing that the O's made in the offseason, and it definitely probably wasn't ones that fans were hoping for this rotation, and he's not going to be that ace type of guy. But when you look at what the rotation and what this clubhouse needed last season and the year before was playoff experience and just veteran leadership as a whole, and Charlie Morton brings that with consistency. I mean, the 6 of the last 7 seasons that he's played in has been 30-plus starts, and that is incredible and something that I think follows perfectly with the category of unsung hero, so I think that's a great answer.
Yeah, Justin on YouTube commenting that Kyle Gibson, a sleeper in this category.
Yeah.
I think he does a lot of similar things to Charlie Morton, so I think both of those guys could be in that category. All right, Annie, before we get to our most valuable Oriole, let's run through our superlatives here and who we have cast our vote for each of these categories.
Okay, so I'll start from the top. The highest OPS, I have Gunnar Henderson. Most home runs, Adley Rutschman. Best starting pitcher, Zach Eflin. Best reliever, Yennier Cano. Breakout star, Cade Povich. All-stars, I have Gunnar, Adley, Westy, and Colton Cowser. Unsung hero, Cedric Mullins. Most valuable prospect, Enrique Bradfield Jr. Breakout prospect, Vance Honeycutt. Best bobblehead, the Colton Cowser Star Wars bobblehead. And best facial hair, Jordan Westberg.
Yeah. For me, I have got highest OPS, Gunnar Henderson. Most homers, Tyler O'Neill. Best starter, Zach Eflin. Best reliever, Yennier Cano. We were aligned on those 2 categories for pitching. Breakout star, Colton Cowser. All-stars, Gunnar, Adley, and Colton. Unsung hero, Charlie Morton. Most valuable prospect, Samuel Basayo. Breakout prospect, Michael Ferret. Best bobblehead, the Adam Jones Orioles Hall of Fame bobblehead. And best facial hair, Gunnar, and that glorious stash. All right, final category here, Annie. Make your prediction for the most valuable Oriole.
I think I want you to make yours because mine's going to be a slightly lesser obvious one.
Okay, I'm going to go with the obvious one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's Gunnar Henderson. He's the best player on the team. He's one of the best players in baseball. He had a WAR over 9 last year. There wasn't anybody that even had half of his WAR. I know he's going to start the season on the injured list. I know it might not be a 9 WAR season again. Even if he, quote-unquote, regresses and has a 6 WAR season, that is still unbelievable.
Yeah.
He plays a premium position at shortstop. He is one of the best players at it. He's an excellent defender. He's an excellent power bat. He got on base at a higher clip last year. Good batting average. I think there are honorable mentions here for me. Adley Rutschman and Colton Cowser, the 2 other guys that I had as all-stars for this season. But I wanted to be different. I wanted to say a different name. I really did. Gunnar Henderson is just the best player on this team, and I think he's going to be the most valuable Oriole.
So with that, to be different, and for the sake of discussion, I'm going to go with your honorable mention in Adley Rutschman, just for, like I mentioned, the sake of discussion. But also, I think when you talk about the identity of this ball club, it is between Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman, kind of the peak guys of this Orioles rebuild. And I think that with Adley, what he's done in this offseason to come back, the numbers that he put up in his rookie season and the year after that are going to be hard to match and come back to, especially after a little bit of a down season last year. But I think that with this offseason, the work that he's put in, the more focus, the more leadership responsibility on his shoulders, and just a whole another year of experience and 2 failed playoff attempts, I think that Adley's going to come in with a fire, already has with a really good spring. And when you look at Gunnar and Adley together, those are the 2 guys with the highest WARs over the last few seasons. Not far behind Gunnar when you look at overall for baseball reference WAR. Gunnar is 16.1 and Adley's 13.1. So I think that Adley is also a viable option here.
Not a bad pick to go with the face of the franchise in Adley
Yeah.
Rutschman. He might be the best catcher in baseball. I think you could make that argument already, and I think you can make that argument by season's end. We are on the same page with anticipating a huge season from Adley Rutschman, and I don't think that's a bad pick at all for most valuable Oriole. And it's good, again, that we have two different options here where I think both of these guys are bona fide stars in the league. They both feel like locks for the All-Star game. It really wasn't even a conversation when we had them as All-Stars. They are two elite players, and I think the second half of last year is the worst half of baseball that Adley Rutschman is going to have in his professional career. I don't see anything carrying over from that. That's not the kind of player that Adley Rutschman is. I think he gets back to Adley Rutschman peak form. I think both of these guys could finish in the top 10 in American League MVP voting, if not being firmly in the race. But that'll just about do it.
Yeah.
For our predictions here. Let us know who your predictions are as you are following along with us, hopefully live on YouTube and Facebook, or you can tweet at us, post at us on Facebook, I don't know, comment somewhere. Let us know who you have for your personal superlatives. It's going to be an exciting year of Orioles baseball, and it starts tomorrow.
Yeah.
Woo!
That's
we are going to be
crazy
back
think about.
with more coverage. Annie and I will have an opening day show tomorrow, so make sure you tune in with us live as we give more season predictions and talk about the 2025 Orioles. But that'll wrap it up for this week's edition of The Bird's Nest. Make sure you follow along with us live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on YouTube and Facebook, or you can catch us after the fact on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts or your digital shows. You can find us here on The Bird's Nest. Big thank you to Amy Jennings behind the scenes for producing this one. For Annie Klaff, I am Brendan Mortensen, and we'll catch you next time.